Prevention Week is a time to discuss how we all can play a role in staying safe. Joining us in studio is Captain Jason Cups from the Prattville Fire Department. Why is Fire Prevention Week so important?
Well, I mean, we're in the business year-round, obviously, but nationally this week is set aside just to draw awareness. There's usually a different campaign every year, but just to kind of grab people's attention and to help them focus on fire safety and hopefully teach them ways to keep their family safe.
What are some simple tips to help us prevent a fire?
Right, so the number one thing that anyone can do to protect themselves and their family is working smoke alarms. And I emphasize working because when they start to chirp, when the batteries get low, some people will take them down and put them on the counter and they're useless. So we want working smoke alarms in every bedroom, every level of your home. That early notification can be all the seconds that you need to get out when there's a fire. So it's very important. This year's theme is actually lithium-ion battery safety. So we're really focusing on the correct way to charge, using only cords or charging cords that are made for that device. I know we're all guilty of picking up the cheap ones just to try to get by, but those can overheat when they're not meant to handle the load that it needs to charge. Also unplugging them when they reach 100%. And again, we're all guilty of leaving them plugged up overnight. But when they get damaged or you drop them or something happens to them, they can do what's called thermal runaway, and they put a lot of heat and energy really fast, and it can be it can start a fire easily. So the other part of that is recycling them and not just throwing them away, because once they're damaged, they can smoke, they can start a fire. So if you have any devices that you'd start to swell or discolor, or you smell kind of a different odor or smoke coming from them, obviously get rid of them. And but we want to recycle our lithium batteries, not just throw them in the trash, because they can start a trash fire as well.
You have to be careful with that. I know you have a lot of fires that start in the home, in the kitchen.
Yes.
What are some big mistakes people make in the kitchen?
Right, so for kitchen safety, the main thing we want to do is if we start to cook something, stay with it. And I know that sounds so simple, but kitchen fires and cooking fires are one of the leading causes of fires in Prattville. I'm pretty sure most fire departments nationwide. People, especially, we all get distracted with our devices these days. So we'll start a meal, and then if a kid's cooking at home, maybe after school, they'll start playing a game or get a text or start watching a video. Someone will come in after a long shift and they'll start putting some food on and then maybe fall asleep on the couch. The next thing you know, then that could take off and catch the kitchen on fire. So really just stick with what you eat, and if you have to leave the kitchen, turn off the burner, turn off whatever you're cooking and come back to it if you need to leave. What
should we do if a fire does break out in the kitchen?
Right, so if the fire breaks out in the kitchen, then first of all, if you're uncomfortable or, the first thing we recommend is just get away and call 911. If you do happen to have an extinguisher, or maybe there's the whole thing about if it's a grease fire, you can throw a rag and if you're comfortable doing that, that's fine, but we would rather just advise people get out. If you do have an extinguisher that's rated for, you'd have to have one for grease, but if you have one nearby, we don't recommend keeping it in the kitchen because that's where the fire is going to be. So maybe a cabinet nearby, the pantry or something, we can go get it and come back. Again, at the end of the day, just get out and call 911 and we'll be there shortly.
A piece of advice you shared with me one time, and I actually used it in my house when I had a fire in the kitchen, was if it's small enough, throw it in the oven, close that door, because it cuts off the oxygen, and that put the fire out immediately.
Right, so microwave fire, something in the oven, we don't want to open the door and allow that fresh oxygen to feed the fire. So if you can keep it isolated, it's not always an extinguisher or water, like you can taking away the oxygen also puts out the fire. So if you're able to do that, then by all means, that's a great move.
We know it's very dry out there right now. We've seen very little rain here recently. Are you seeing a lot of wildfires in your area?
So we've had some issues here lately. So I think fire departments across the state are trying to help the Forestry Commission put out the word about being smart about burning, or just not burning at all, which is the best course of action. Of course, recreational fire pits are not included in that, but again, that's still got to be safe. Keep something nearby, water hose, some water, some way to put out that fire. And as far as people clearing land or maybe doing demolition or anything like that, we don't want to burn any of that. ADEM has some very strict laws about what you're allowed to burn, period, that we adhere to. But let's just be safe in these dry conditions until we get some good rain, and just we don't have any wildfires or unnecessary fires that we could avoid.
Not just like people burning stuff outside. I imagine, I've seen people like throw cigarette butts out the window. Can little things like that, or a spark off a chain that's dragging, cause an issue? Yes,
it can. So with these extra dry conditions, yes, something as simple, people discarding smoking materials can definitely start something. Just sparks that could normally not be an issue, but with the dry conditions and the breeze and that's coming through, it can easily start a fire, and then that fire can move from just a small area to a few acres quickly. So we want to be smart and be safe.
imagine it's important to educate people too. A lot of folks panic in fires, and I think this week's so important for folks to know what they should do if a fire breaks out.
Yes, you want to have a good home escape plan. Practice with your family now how you're going to get out of the house and where you're going to meet up. For some people, that may be the mailbox out front. For some people that live in apartments, that may be the next door. But you've got to have somewhere that you can get out quickly and everyone can be accounted for. That's something you need to have in place before an emergency happens so you're ready when the time comes.
Get out, don't go back in.
That's right. Don't go back in for anything.
Captain Jason Cubs, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.